Hi everybody, this is Ashley with Ashley Says So, and I am back with another pop-up scandal video. I wanted so badly to give you guys another old Hollywood scandal video before the end of this month, but I had to do a Patreon video, so I just couldn't swing it. However, I didn't want to leave you all hanging totally. So here we are. Now everybody and they mama always has their eyes on Meghan Markle and Catherine Middleton, always talking about them and wondering about their dating histories. They always overlook the female royal family member with the most scandalous lovers of all. But we ain't overlooking nothing today, honey. In fact, we're about to dig deep, very deep, into the secret dealings of Princess Margaret. After this disclaimer. Everything in this video is alleged. It is gossip, tea, and scandal that I get from everywhere. Make sure you guys do your own research. So, right off the bat, let's make a few things clear about Princess Margaret. Many of the people who met her throughout the years said that she was very beautiful, but they also said that she was an insufferable, spoiled brat. So let's first touch on some of her atrocious behavior, especially if you had her as a dinner guest. There were many stories about how she would make royal visits to your home and demand to be fed some of the most expensive and luxurious food in town. Then they talked of how instead of eating the food, Princess Margaret would light up a cigarette because she knew it was customary that nobody ate until the royal at the table ate. And after Princess Margaret had smoked her cigarette all the way down, she would pick up her fork, take 3 to 4 bites before promptly putting it back down. Then she would look around the table with a smirk on her face, noting how people would be praying under their breath, hoping that she picked her fork back up again because they would be hungry. And again, nobody ate unless the royal was eating. And sometimes Princess Margaret would pick her fork back up again, letting the peasants eat their fill. But other times, especially if she was throwing one of her famous royal hissy fits, she would leave the fork there, light up another cigarette, and declare that she is just oh so full, leaving everybody at the table starving and hoping that she would go to bed early so they could sneak back into the kitchen and finish their food. Every time Princess Margaret did something like this, a whole new group of people would complain about how she was the most arrogant and obnoxious royal they've ever met. But baby, Princess Margaret never cared. She was a bad girl and a rebel from the start. And when it came to her very first lover, her rebellious nature played a main part. Now, the folks say that Princess Margaret's first lover was a man by the name of Captain Peter Townsend, and Captain Peter Townsend was actually the royal family's equerry. And it was while he was working in his equerry position as a stable hand that he got fully acquainted with the very young Princess Margaret. In fact, she was around 14 years old at this time. And while Margaret was 14, Captain Peter Townsend was 30 and he was married. Now, I'm not trying to say that there was anything physical between the two at this stage. But since Peter Townsend started to give Margaret equestrian lessons, spending all of this time around a very handsome adult male, Margaret started to develop feelings that she shouldn't have. Now, we understand that Margaret was developing these feelings simply because of the male attention. But Margaret didn't comprehend this. She felt like the feelings that she was developing for Peter Townsend were real. You know, she really felt like she was in love. And as the years rolled by and Margaret got a little bit older, she was certain that she was in love. Now, Captain Peter Townsend should have been telling Margaret that she was just young and she was confused in her feelings for him. But it seems like the man may have gotten a kick out of having a royal have a crush on him. And because he never said anything, the folks say that when Princess Margaret turned 18, she let Captain Peter Townsend slide up in between. Now, of course, the public had no knowledge that any of this was going on, but gossip claims some of the royal family members as well as the royal staff did know. In fact, some of them were said to pull Princess Margaret to the side and they tried to convince her to let this affair or situation that she had with Captain Peter Townsend, they told her to let it go. But honey, the folks say that Margaret threw one of her legendary bitch fits. And this next thing I'm about to say, the royal family never wanted nobody to know, even up until this day. But as quiet as it's kept, when Princess Margaret threw this fit, it was decided by some of the royal family members that she could continue to carry on with Peter Townsend as long as she kept it under wraps and certainly kept it out of the public eye. But here's the thing, if they thought that this was going to placate Princess Margaret for the long haul, they were wrong, because as she went into her 20s, she started to see all of the other girls her age around her getting married, including her sister, and Princess Margaret wanted to get married as well. And of course, her choice of mate was Captain Peter Townsend. Now, this right here was a little bit too much for the royal family, and so they told Margaret no. Even when Peter Townsend went home and divorced his wife to show that he cared for Princess Margaret, her family, the royal aides, everybody still said no. But as I told you before, Margaret was a spoiled brat, so there was no way she was going to deal with that. And so Margaret started trying to force the issue of her and Peter Townsend being married. She started to do little things like, smile and cuddle up to him in public. And so talk of Peter Townsend and Princess Margaret's relationship did start to grow, but it was not enough to push the issue of marriage when it came to the royal family. Well, Princess Margaret decided that she needed to take drastic measures, and the very next time she and her family were on camera, she walked over to stand right beside Peter Townsend, and then she flirtatiously flicked a speck of dust off of his shoulder. And this right here was enough to drive the public wild. Oh my gosh, did you see? Princess Margaret loves Peter Townsend. She loves him. I could tell by the touch. Oh my gosh, they have to get married. I wonder what they're going to name their child. Now, this was what Margaret wanted to see. People cheering and wanting and pushing for her and Peter Townsend to be married. But everybody knows that the press and the public can love you one moment and then hate you the next. And in the midst of all of this cheer and support, one reporter or press agent started digging into Captain Peter Townsend's past. And when they published that he was not only 16 years older than Princess Margaret, but he was also a recent divorcee, oh honey, it was a scandalous thing, child. Baby, folks was judging from every which way. And suddenly, a lot of people didn't think that Captain Peter Townsend was a great choice for Margaret. Now, of course, the royal family cannot stand scandal. They cannot stand having eyes on them. But when it came to this situation, they were kind of glad about it because they felt like maybe now, that Margaret was reading all of this stuff, maybe this will stop her from wanting to marry Captain Peter Townsend. But Margaret was a strong-willed girl, and if anything, this made her want to marry Captain Peter Townsend all the more. So since she wouldn't budge, and now the public was privy to all of this information, the palace definitely had to make a decision. They either had to allow Princess Margaret to marry Captain Peter Townsend or give her a firm, resounding no. And eventually, the palace did come up with a decision. And it was that Princess Margaret would be free to marry Captain Peter Townsend if she was willing to give up her royal titles and also her royal income. And honey, Margaret tried to stay strong in her love for Captain Peter Townsend. But child, as the thoughts of losing her money and her titles became clearer each day, Captain Peter Townsend turned into an ugly man right away. And so, bye-bye Peter Townsend and hello everybody else. And I'm being messy, but the truth is, after Margaret wasn't allowed to marry who she really wanted to, that gal started acting like a straight prostitute. Now, the folks say one of the first men that Princess Margaret dealt with after the Peter Townsend affair was commoner Billy Wallace. But here's the thing, even though Billy Wallace was a commoner, baby, the boy had money like you wouldn't believe. And I don't think Princess Margaret ever wanted to be truly serious with Billy Wallace, but she liked that money, and more than that, she liked the fact that he dated movie starlets. And I know that sounds weird, but gossip claims that Prince Margaret had a thing where she kind of competed with movie starlets. So any man that dated them, she liked to come on the scene and be like, hey, I can date him too. Y'all girls think y'all on the movie screen, think y'all all that. Baby, I look like a star too. And actually, Princess Margaret wanting to flex on the movie starlets by dating Billy Wallace ended up turning into a situation where he was led on. Because see, after Billy Wallace and Princess Margaret started dating and eventually slept together, he thought that it was true love. And so he took his chance chances and he proposed to her. And the folks say that Princess Margaret said yes to the proposal, but it was only due to the fact that she was still trying to prove a point to some of those movie starlets who wished that Billy would have proposed to them. But when Billy started to ask Margaret about actual wedding dates and, colors of the wedding and where it will be and all of this good stuff, then Margaret was sitting up there with her hair blew back, knowing that she had taken this thing way too far. And so she goaded Billy Wallace into having a conversation about his recent lovers. And then after he talked about them, she feigned absolute heartbreak. "Oh, Billy, how dare you? I know I asked you about it, but I can't believe you slept with her. And then that thing you did with her, I thought I was the only one you did that to. Oh, God, I can't go on with this wedding. It's just too much." And with that, she left Billy Wallace, although they remained friends. Now, the next man Princess Margaret was involved with, she did marry. And I know y'all are like, "Ashley, you said she was behaving as a prostitute. How she was behaving as a prostitute if we only talked about 2 men since Captain Peter Townsend, and now she getting married again?" Baby, it's because most of her prostitute behavior happened within her marriage. And to go ahead and start talking about some of that, the folks say that around 1958, Margaret snuck off in the middle of the night like she usually did to go to a wild party. And while at this party, she ended up meeting a very handsome photographer by the name of Anthony Armstrong Jones. And since this party was alleged to be very wild and there was a lot of drinking going on that night, the couple is alleged to have gotten kind of handsy right when they first met. Now, I'm not sure if that rumor is true, but even if they did get handsy, getting handsy don't bring no real satisfaction for grown people who know what feels like. So right after that night, Princess Margaret and Anthony Armstrong started to meet up and sleep with each other at a mutual friend's house. And when they weren't messing around, Anthony Armstrong Jones was sneaking Princess Margaret out of the palace and taking her to places so she could experience life. And so Princess Margaret was very taken with Anthony Armstrong Jones. This man was very fun. He wasn't stiff-lipped like those men at the royal court. She could let her hair down. He taught her new things about her body. And so Princess Margaret thought this man was absolutely delectable. However, when the other royals found out about Anthony, they were not so impressed. To them, this guy was almost an even worse fit than Captain Peter Townsend. He had no royal blood. He had never spent any real time around the royal family, so he didn't know how to act. He didn't know any of the etiquette, so he wouldn't fit in. He just was not it in their mind. He was a photographer, for goodness sakes. He didn't even have a reputable career. But Princess Margaret, like usual, did not care. She continued to see her lover boy, and by the year 1959, they were secretly engaged. And because of this, and because Princess Margaret really wanted to marry Anthony Armstrong Jones, she came clean about her engagement to her family, and she demanded that this time she be allowed to marry the man that she loved. And at first, the royal family hesitated to agree. But when Princess Margaret started to flare up and started to become enraged and prepared to throw one of her famous hissy fits, baby, her sister Elizabeth came to the rescue. As a matter of fact, Queen Elizabeth was so keen on giving her sister what she wanted that she even decided to throw in a title for Anthony Armstrong Jones just so he could fit into the royal family. And that title was the Lord of Snowdon. Princess Margaret was absolutely thrilled with this resolution, and she and Anthony Armstrong Jones, aka Lord Snowdon, were married in the year 1960. Now, after the marriage, Princess Margaret and Lord Snowdon seemed very much in love. They even ended up having 2 children. But about 5 years into their marriage, it was clear that the only thing that brought happiness to the couple was spontaneity, wildness, the feeling of having a rush, pretty much the feelings that they had while they were dating and sneaking around to see each other and sneaking around to go do things. So now that they were just a plain old couple in a plain old marriage, things started to get rather stale. And I'm not sure who cheated first, but rest assured, there was a lot of cheating going on. Now, the folks say that one of Margaret's first lovers while she was married was one of her husband's closest friends. And this man's name was Anthony Barton. And this affair started in the year 1966. As a matter of fact, it started when her husband, Lord Snowden, Anthony Armstrong Jones, was on a vacation in India. And listen to this though, honey. Listen to how messy Princess Margaret was. Now, she knew she was having an affair with this man, right? Baby, why come the folks say that when her husband, Lord Snowden, came back into town, Princess Margaret asked him if they should make Anthony Barton their daughter's godfather? Child, just messy, messy, messy. And the sad part about it, her husband, Anthony Armstrong Jones, aka Lord Snowden, was sitting up there agreeing to the situation, looking like Boo Boo the Fool, talking about, yes, darling, what a wonderful idea. He's always been a great friend to me. Let's give him that honor. Sir, this man is blowing your wife's back out. Lord have mercy. Now, to move on with the story, I don't know why Princess Margaret was being petty like that, but it could have been because she knew that Lord Snowden was cheating on her as well, because the folks say that he was heavily involved with Lady Jacqueline Rufus Isaacs, and if you want to get real messy and tell the real deal, he also was allegedly involved with a couple of men too. So maybe that's why Princess Margaret was playing in her husband's face. But while her behind was trying to be funny, at one point, all that playing almost got her messed up. And I'm talking about her next affair, which was with Robin Douglas Home. Now, Robin Douglas Home was the nephew of a former prime minister, and Princess Margaret allegedly started sleeping with him around 1967. And Margaret was sitting up there putting a whole bunch of good TT on that man, not knowing that he had severe emotional problems. So while she was going to a secret lodge with him, loving him up real good, and writing him very romantic letters, Robin Douglas Home started falling very deeply in love with her. Well, allegedly, Princess Margaret ended up getting caught by her husband. And even though he had hinted at not being in love with Princess Margaret anymore, and kind of being okay with her doing whatever she wanted to do, now that it was in his face, he acted a fool. And so Lord Snowden and Princess Margaret had it out, but after they were done arguing, they both made up and they both promised to stop cheating on each other. You know, they were going to start again. Well, since this was the case, Princess Margaret had to break it off with Robin Douglas Home. And baby, why come as soon as Robin Douglas Home read that Princess Margaret couldn't see him anymore, he sank into a deep depression? Not only did he sink into a depression, gossip claims that he was so distraught that about a year after the affair was over, he went to the secret lodge or apartment that he and Princess Margaret had been meeting at in the past and took himself off the planet. Honey child, the scandal child. Or at least it would have been a scandal had the public known about it. But thankfully for Princess Margaret, the public didn't know about it. And it was a good thing too, because according to one of Robin Douglas Home's friends, he was in a same room with Princess Margaret when Robin's death was announced. And he said Princess Margaret was so cold-hearted that upon hearing the news, she didn't even bat an eye. So yeah, your girl definitely was a man-eater. She would use you for what she wanted or needed, and then she would discard you like yesterday's trash. Now, I do have to say that even though the taking off of the planet of Robin Douglas Home didn't seem to emotionally affect Princess Margaret, it does seem like it kind of steered her in a different direction when it came to her affairs. She stopped messing with men who were relatively unknown and who could develop real affection and feelings for her, and she instead started to mess with easier flings, people who really wouldn't get a strong attachment to her, like celebrities. And it's alleged that the first celebrity that she had an affair with was actor David Niven. And since David Niven just made an appearance in my last video, the Ava Gardner video, it's pretty safe to say that this guy got around. But to move on, the next celebrity affair Princess Margaret was said to have was with actor Peter Sellers. As a matter of fact, when it came to this affair, it's very likely that Princess Margaret's husband, Lord Snowden, was involved. ball because honey, Peter Sellers was also married. So it's alleged it could have been a little bit of swinging, a little bit of swapping spouses going on. Now, is the spouse swapping, swinging thing true? I don't know. But what is said to be definitely true is that when these couples got together, they drank very heavily and there was a ton of illicit drug use. The white stuff. But to move on to the rumors and information involving Peter Sellers and Princess Margaret directly, Peter Sellers is said to have enjoyed Princess Margaret very much. And unfortunately for Princess Margaret, even though Peter Sellers was a celebrity and married, he still became semi-attached. Honey, these folks go so far as to say Peter Sellers actually became jealous over Princess Margaret, even while knowing that she was married. The way it worked is Peter Sellers was okay if Princess Margaret was sleeping with her husband, Lord Snowden, but if he'd heard about her messing around with anybody else, baby, he would act a fool like she was his woman. Matter of fact, this was said to be the cause of a major blow-up between them. You see, while Peter Sellers was shooting a movie called Casino Royale, he invited Princess Margaret to the set. Well, I don't know if Princess Margaret was upset with Peter Sellers for something he may have done or if she was just being a cunty bitch, but as soon as she got on the set, honey, she walked straight past Peter Sellers and didn't even look his way. Baby didn't even acknowledge him. Who she did acknowledge was Orson Welles, who was standing beside Peter Sellers. And not only did she acknowledge Orson Welles, she came up to him very sensual-like and raised up her hand for Orson Welles to kiss. Orson Welles did kiss it, and Peter Sellers blew his top. The folks say that Peter Sellers started cursing Orson Welles out, walked off the set, got into his car, and drove away, never to return. And I guess Peter Sellers acting like this must have turned Princess Margaret all the way off when it came to emotional men. Because baby, this next man she was rumored to have messed with just really don't even make no sense. And that is because this man was a gangster named John Benden. And according to John Benden, he was at one of those wild parties and Princess Margaret was also in attendance. He said that he walked up to Princess Margaret and he convinced her to go to bed with him because he showed her his special trick. And his special trick was getting himself extended and hard enough to balance a beer mug on his extension. And if John Benden is telling the truth, I guess Princess Margaret had never seen something so hard and sturdy. And child, I guess she just had to have the feel of it. So allegedly they messed around that night. And after John Benden, things allegedly became even more wild, if not a little bit strange. Because the folks say Princess Margaret developed a taste for the crunchy munchy. And honey says she munched down on Anita Pallenberg as well as Dusty Springfield. And maybe Dusty had a little dust down below. Because honey, the folks say after that, Princess Margaret hurried up and went back to the throaty boaty. And the first person she allegedly performed it on after her re-arrival was said to be rock star Mick Jagger. Baby said that she was getting it in with Mick Jagger on the private island she liked to visit called Mystique. And actually, this private island where Princess Margaret liked to get busy would eventually lead to her ruin. Because in the year 1973, when Princess Margaret was 43, she ended up going to a coffee shop and meeting a 23-year-old by the name of Roddy Llewellyn. And Roddy Llewellyn, who wanted to amuse the royal princess, told her jokes and made her laugh. In fact, Princess Margaret was so thrilled with Roddy's great conversation and his splendid manners that she suddenly felt in desperate need for a boy toy. And she was hoping that Roddy could be it. And Roddy sure enough became it. Baby, the boy started flying around with Princess Margaret everywhere she went. But one of their favorite places to go was the private island of Mystique, where it's alleged that they would make love on the beach. And before long, 3 years had passed on the freaky sexed out couple. And things started to be noticed. You see, some of the other wealthy older ladies who also vacationed at Mystique didn't like the way Princess Margaret paraded her boy toy in front of their faces, especially when they couldn't find one of their own. And so they started to gossip amongst each other about how unclassy the whole affair was. And pretty soon, Princess Margaret and Roddy Llewellyn were high society gossip fodder, and there were several rumors making their round. Rumors of how Princess Margaret would visit her friends' houses and a lot of times have her boy toy in tow. Rumors of how someone just suddenly decided to take a late evening walk on the beach and just happened to walk close to Princess Margaret's private residence and accidentally saw her making love to a young man that they all thought was her assistant. Child, all type of rumors were flying every which way. But because Roddy and Princess Margaret were so wrapped up into each other, they missed the very obvious eyes on them. And because of this, they would also miss the literal eyes on them, which happened in the year 1976. Turns out that gossip had spread to a tabloid magazine, and so they snuck paparazzi cameras onto the private island. And right at that moment, Princess Margaret and Roddy Llewellyn just so happened to be taking a romantic swim together. And when pictures of their outings appeared on the front cover of tabloid magazines, baby, they did not know what to do, especially Princess Margaret. It was an absolute disaster for her. She'd brought shame on herself, shame on her family, and shame on the royal family as a whole. To add further embarrassment, her husband, Lord Snowdon, wouldn't forgive her, and so they ended up divorcing. And what was even more embarrassing is that after Princess Margaret's divorce, she thought that maybe she could move on with Roddy Llewellyn and perhaps maybe even marry him, but eventually he decided that he would rather marry a woman his own age. And so he left Princess Margaret high and dry. Now, from this point on, Princess Margaret was sadly never linked to another lover, at least not where I saw. And since she really had nothing else to do, she spent most of her time with her mother or with her sister or all by herself at the private island Mustique. What's even more sad is that her bad habits of smoking and drinking had increased, and so in 1985, part of her left lung was removed, and in 1993, she developed pneumonia. The illnesses continued to come after that, and in 1998, Princess Margaret suffered a mild stroke, and in 1999, not being able to move around as well as she used to, she mistakenly scalded her feet in the bathtub. In 2001, she ended up suffering yet another stroke, and she suffered a nervous breakdown and went through severe depression. And although it's a sad thing, at least people could be thankful for the fact that she was granted peace in the year 2002. And the peace I am talking about happened on February the 9th of that year when Princess Margaret gracefully passed away in her sleep. Princess Margaret was 71 years old, and if she couldn't say anything else, at least she could say that she was one royal who got to live her life to the fullest. And so this is the end of the pop-up scandalous tale of Princess Margaret. If you guys enjoyed the video, if you guys liked the video, please like the video. If you guys are new here, please subscribe. If you guys have been sitting on the fence, baby, it's been too long. You've been sitting there too long. Go ahead and subscribe because we're getting to 300K. I don't know when, but we're gonna get there. But anyways, I love you guys. I will see you guys again with another video soon. Bye.